Hello everybody and welcome back to Take Juan. Okay, this is the fourth and final part of everything I watched at VIFF. So, as I've been saying at the beginning of the past couple of videos, the Vancouver International Film Festival happened here in Vancouver from the 28th of September until the 8th of October. I was able to watch 22 total movies. So on the 7th of October, I actually saw the most movies I saw in one day of the film festival, and the first movie I watched was The Boy and the Heron, which is Hayao Miyazaki's newest movie. Now, I've already reviewed The Boy and the Heron, so I won't talk about The Boy and the Heron, but if you haven't seen my review and you care about what I think or what I have to say about The Boy and the Heron, definitely check that video out. Then the movie I watched right after The Boy and the Heron was a movie called Monster from the director Hirokazu Koreeda. I loved Monster. I was so excited for this movie because I love the director. I think Hirokazu Koreeda is a very interesting filmmaker. I think my two favorite movies of his are, Shoplifters and Broker. That said, even though I love those movies very, very much, I do understand the criticism that is often lobbed at this filmmaker, and that criticism is that he always makes the same movie, that he keeps making the same movie over and over again. Basically, both of the movies that I love the most, Broker and Shoplifters, they're both movies about found family, where this group of misfits come together to create this family unit, and they end up finding a baby or a child that ends up joining them, and then towards the end, everyone's crying, and it's very sad and emotional, and I love the movies, but yes, they are very similar, and yes, this filmmaker does tend to kind of explore the same ideas and the same narratives in a lot of his movies. That said, I still love them. Even though he kind of makes the same movie over and over again, I still very much enjoy them. So I was excited for this one. I saw the title, Monster, and I didn't read the synopsis, I didn't watch the trailer, I didn't read anything else, but just by the title, I was like, ooh, this sounds different, this sounds like it's not gonna be another story of, a family unit stumbling into a baby or a child and adopting them. Then I heard that this time he didn't actually write the screenplay, that it was someone else writing the script for Monster, and that, once again, piqued my attention even more, because that is yet another evidence that this is going to be a different movie from him, that this is going to be unlike any of the films he has made before. I went to watch it on the 7th, and I absolutely love it, and what I love the most is, first of all, just how different it is to the previous movies that Hirokazu Koreeda has made. This is definitely not a wholesome movie about a family finding a baby and having to deal with that and, creating an unconventional family unit. No. This is another movie that is very much interested in the idea of, is there such a thing as an objective truth? And I didn't know this coming into the movie, but I think it would make a better experience if you know this going in, so I'll go ahead and say it. This film, Monster, is told using a similar narrative style to movies such as Rashomon and The Last Duel. For those of you who haven't seen Rashomon and The Last Duel, incredible movies, by the way. Rashomon is one of my favorite Akira Kurosawa films, and The Last Duel is an incredibly underrated Ridley Scott film. But, the style that these movies use is basically they tell you the same event, they tell you the same story from different perspectives. And the point of all of these films, the point of Rashomon and the point of The Last Duel, is to question the idea of an objective truth, is to show you that we as human beings, we are subjective beings, and the stuff that we perceive, the stuff that we see, is not really an objective reality, but just our perception of a reality. It is our subjective view of that reality. And this movie, Monster, uses that same narrative structure. They tell you the events that happen in 1 week from 3 different perspectives. The perspective of the mother, the perspective of a teacher, and then the perspective of one of the children that are involved in the stuff that happens in 1 week. And I think this movie used that Rashomon narrative style to perfection. I was very impressed by how the same events could appear to be completely different depending on whose perspective we're seeing them through. In one perspective, the events might appear to be sinister and dark and scary, but then in another perspective, the same events suddenly seem loving and joyful and happy, and that just completely blew my mind. The way this movie unpeels its many different layers, and every time they keep showing you more and more and more and more and more of the narrative until you finally get it, that yes, there is no such thing as an objective truth, but seeing all of the subjective experiences come together to create a whole, a kind of cohesive whole, was an absolutely magical experience. I loved Monster. And, Monster, by the way, was the movie that ended up winning the Audience Award at this year's Vancouver International Film Festival, for this category, for the category of special presentations. It won the Audience Awards. It was the movie that people loved the most, and I think there is a good reason why. This was an incredible, incredible movie. If I were to give it a score, I would give it a 9 out of 10. I think this film was amazing. Now, the next movie I saw on the 7th of October was a movie that I've been dying to talk about ever since I saw it. It is called The Taste of Things. I love The Taste of Things. I think it's an amazing, amazing movie, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I'll just start by saying that watching this movie was by far my favorite cinematic experience in the entire festival. It was wild. So I'll start by saying that this film, The Taste of Things, is directed by Vietnamese director Tran Anh Hun, which some of you might know. Tran Anh Hun is most famous for directing a movie called The Smell of Green Papayas, or The Scent of Green Papayas. And if you have seen The Smell of Green Papayas or The Scent of Green Papayas, you know that this filmmaker loves to make movies that very much trigger your senses, that very much interact with your five senses, particularly your sense of smell and your sense of taste. When you're watching Scent of Green Papaya, you can almost taste the dishes that the characters are cooking. You can almost smell that green papaya. You can smell the food. You can smell the environment. They are, movies that very much engage with your five senses. They stimulate your five senses. I think this film, The Taste of Things, is that, but on steroids. It is even more of that. If The Scent of Green Papaya engages with your senses, The Taste of Things is a full-blown sensory overload. This film is insane. I have never felt that hungry watching a movie than I did when I was watching The Taste of Things. My mouth was constantly watering. It got to a point where I literally had to start chewing gum halfway through the movie because of how much I was salivating and how hungry I was feeling. Because basically, The Taste of Things, as the title indicates, it's a whole movie dedicated to showing the beauty of the culinary arts. The beauty of cooking, the beauty of making dishes. And oh my god, did it make me hungry. And not only me, but everyone that was watching that movie with me. And that is why I say that watching this film at the film festival was my favorite cinematic experience of the entirety of VIFF. It was because they screened this film at 6 p.m. where, people are starting to get hungry. And then they played this film, The Taste of Things. And every time that a delicious meal appeared on screen, you could just hear everyone in the auditorium just going, or ooh, or it's, making weird sounds like that. And then the funniest thing is, after we all collectively moaned about the food that we were watching, then everyone just broke into laughter, and everyone started laughing because we couldn't believe what was happening in that theater. The cinematography, the set design, the way this film frames food and shows you food is some of the most sumptuous, sensual stuff I've ever seen. I guess the best way I could put it is this movie makes food look like pornography. It makes cooking look like pornography. It is incredibly sensual, incredibly appetizing, and your mouth is just watering by the beauty that you're seeing on screen. That said, this movie's not for everyone. It is incredibly slow. If you've seen The Scent of Green Papaya, you kind of know the pacing that you should be expecting. This movie is very much paced in a similar way to that one. It is a very, very, very slow movie. And the plot is there is a story, but it is not really the focus. So if that doesn't sound like your cup of tea, don't watch it. That said, I love movies that make me feel things that I've never felt before. And I've just never seen a movie that has made me this hungry. I've never seen a movie that has just shown the culinary arts in such a beautiful, sensual, and profound way. I guess the best way I can put it is the first 30 minutes of this film, and I'm not kidding, the first 30 minutes of this movie is nothing but shots of people cooking. And it is frankly hypnotizing. It is delicious. My mouth is watering right now just remembering some of the food they made. But yeah, I love the taste of things. If I were to give it a score, I would give it a 9 out of 10. It's an amazing movie. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. It doesn't only stimulate your senses, it is a full-blown sensory overload. The acting is amazing. The cinematography is amazing. The set design is amazing. But who am I kidding? The food. The food is the protagonist, and the food is incredible. Then, the last movie I watched on the 7th of October was actually Priscilla, the newest film from Sofia Coppola. And Priscilla is also a movie that I have already reviewed. There is a full-length review in this channel. So if you care about my thoughts of Priscilla, definitely go check that one out. And then, on the 8th of October, the last day of the festival, I saw 3 more films. The first movie I saw on the 8th of October is called About Dry Grasses, and it is a Turkish film, I believe. Yes, it is a Turkish film directed by Nuri Bilge Ceylan. This director has directed movies such as Once Upon a Time in Anatolia, Winter Sleep, The Wild Pear Tree, Uzak, films that are very famous Turkish movies that I've heard about for the longest time. So I'm glad I finally got to watch one of his movies, and I thought About Dry Grasses was amazing. I was a bit scared going into the movie because all I've heard about this filmmaker is that his movies can be very slow, and also this film About Dry Grasses is 3 hours and 15 minutes long, somewhere around that mark. So I went into the film a bit scared, but I absolutely loved it. Incredible film. The cinematography is amazing. Some of the vistas that we see, some of the environments that we see is just absolutely breathtaking. The snowy mountains and, the endless fields of dry grass, hence the name, About Dry Grasses. The protagonist is a photographer, and every once in a while we see some of the photos that the protagonist has taken, and they're just mesmerizing, breathtaking, hypnotic. Apart from that, I love the script. I think the script is one of the strongest things about this movie. It's one of those screenplays where in page someone could tell you like nothing really happens. That said, in every single conversation, there is so much tension. There is so much emotion that is building up in every single conversation that I was constantly engaged and I was constantly at the edge of my seat. The dialogue in this film is just some of the best dialogue I've ever seen. In my opinion, writing dialogue that is like imbued with philosophy and imbued with philosophical undertones, it's never easy. I've tried it in multiple screenplays that I've written, but it always ends up sounding preachy. It sounds like I'm teaching something instead of sounding organic and sounding like something that a real character would actually say. That said, here in this film, in About Dry Grasses, I swear, so many of the conversations are so philosophically rich, and they always feel organic. They always feel like real conversations. I absolutely loved it. And what I loved the most about this film, or what impressed me the most about this film, is the fact that the main character is a jerk. The main character is an absolute asshole. He's just not a great human being. That said, he is fascinating, and that is evidence of a great script. If this film was able to keep us interested in the story of an absolute asshole, that means something. I thought the film was fascinating, the dialogue was incredible, the philosophical undertones throughout the entire movie were incredibly well developed, especially the perspective of the protagonist and the way he saw the world. He's very pessimistic, he's very nihilistic, I guess, in the way he sees the world, in the way he sees the people that surround him. But then throughout the film, he gets confronted by different characters who challenge his views, who challenge his opinions, and all of those conversations were just delicious. I ate them up. Absolutely incredible. So yeah, I loved About Dry Grasses, and I'm definitely interested in checking out more of the movies from this filmmaker. Now, the second movie I saw on the 8th of October is called How to Have Sex. This film is directed by Molly Manning Walker, and I thought this movie was very good. There are some party scenes that are really well made, really well shot, the flashing lights and the sounds and the bodies and everyone rubbing against each other. The cinematography of this film was really able to put me in these situations, to put me in the middle of these parties. Throughout the film, it gets to a point where these parties start feeling repetitive and draining, but I do think it is intentional. You are meant to feel what the characters are feeling. You're meant to feel what the protagonist is feeling. And by this point in the film, she's getting tired of this. She's not enjoying it anymore, so it makes sense that we, as the audience, we also start finding them repetitive and draining, kind of like a place you have to escape. Of course, I won't go into detail, I won't spoil the movie, but then, the movie's not just fun parties for the entirety of its runtime. And there's one point where things really get serious, and then for the entirety of the movie, we're stuck dealing with the repercussions of the serious stuff that happens. I enjoyed it. I would give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a very good movie, once again. And now, the last movie I saw on the 8th of October, and the very last movie I saw for the entirety of the Vancouver International Film Festival, was a movie called Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World. And I don't even know what to say about this movie, man. I guess the best way I could put it is this film reminded me a lot of Tout va bien. Jean-Luc Godard's Tout va bien. I don't know if you've seen Tout va bien. I had to watch it for one of my film classes here at UBC, and my professor, when we were about to watch Tout va bien, she literally introduced the movie by saying that Godard wants you to hate this movie. He made a movie so egregious that breaks all the laws, all the rules of common narratives, all the rules, all the conventions, because he wants you to hate it. He wants you to ask yourself, why do I expect certain things from cinema? Why do I expect certain things from movies, I guess? And this film, once again, reminded me a lot of that. This film felt like another movie that desperately wanted me to hate it. This film is incredibly transgressive. It is unlike anything I've ever seen. First of all, it is a plotless movie. It doesn't really have a narrative. You're just following this very loud, outspoken protagonist as she's trying to, do certain things in order to get this video made. She basically works for like a TV company, and they are about to make a PSA. And the whole movie is pretty much that. It's you're following this protagonist driving from one place to the other, talking to one person, talking to another person, paying this person, then grabbing lenses from this place, grabbing lenses from this other place, and then at the very end of the movie, you finally see them shooting the PSA. Sounds conventionally enough, kind of, right? Well, it ain't. Because here's the deal. First of all, when the film begins, it starts by letting you know that this is a movie that is in conversation with an older movie, with an older Romanian movie. And at first, I had no idea what that means. Well, what that means is that every couple of minutes, the film cuts away to scenes from a completely different movie. But basically, you're intercutting between past and present. You're intercutting in between this modern, transgressive film and then this older, more conventional movie. And that part, I very much enjoyed. I like that idea. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's novel, it's transgressive, but it's new, But then, there are some other transgressive moments in this movie that I'm like, oh my god, you just want us to hate it. There's a part where the movie just completely turns into a slideshow. For 5 whole minutes, we're just seeing pictures of graves right next to the street. There's no music in the background. There are no sound effects. There's no dialogue. There's no monologue. It's just silence and pictures of graves. And I couldn't believe it. I kept looking at my friend. I kept looking at everyone in the theater. Everyone was kind of restless looking at each other. We didn't know what we were watching. But then when that was over, I was like, okay, surely that is like the most transgressive and, weird this movie's gonna get. But oh, no, okay? At the end, as I previously said, by the end of the movie, we actually see the characters shooting this PSA. They begin shooting with the first actor and his family. And they place the camera down, and we're seeing from the perspective of the camera. And then, they roll camera, and then they do the first take. But they don't like the first take. And instead of cutting away and then showing us once again, once they're doing a different take, they leave all the moments of in between. Which means that the last 30 minutes of this movie is one uninterrupted shot where you're seeing these characters trying to get this shot. There's like a moment where like the director of the ad, the director of the PSA says like, oh, I don't like that sign in the background. And once again, instead of cutting away, we see it all, okay? We see the PAs walking to the background, finding a ladder, placing it down, going up the ladder, bringing the sign down, then grabbing the ladder once again, hiding it from the camera, coming back into the foreground. In the meantime, we see the actors in the foreground kind of getting restless. It's warm and it's miserable and rain starts falling. And then you hear the protagonist in the background, filming one of her very egregious, very loud TikToks, and it's oh my god, and it goes like that for 30 minutes. So yeah, this is what I mean. This is a movie that desperately wants you to hate it. This is an incredibly transgressive and incredibly weird movie. That said, I kind of enjoyed it. I kind of liked how weird it was. I kind of liked it for its charm, and I also hate the fact that I kind of liked it. So if I were to give it a score, I would give it a 7 out of 10, but I honestly don't know what to say about this movie. The title is a meme. The movie is a meme. Everything in this film is a meme. It's just poking fun at you. It is desperately trying to annoy you, and yet I kind of liked it. I liked how weird it was. So yeah, that's that for Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World. And those are all the movies that I saw at this year's Vancouver International Film Festival. Now, I guess I'll end this video on my VIFF coverage by sharing with you guys my ranking of all 22 films that I saw at this year's Vancouver International Film Festival. I'll probably put a picture right here of my ranking so that you guys can see what movies I liked the most in comparison to each other. But yeah, that is it for this year's Vancouver International Film Festival. But now, before I sign off, there's a couple of people that I have to thank. Special thanks to everyone at VIFF. Thank you for making this year's festival an absolutely incredible experience. Thank you to everyone at MPMG, the Murray Peterson Marketing Group, Angela Poon, Ariane Belvilla, Ines Min, Laura Murray. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. Also, thank you to Katia Debok from the NFB, the National Film Board of Canada. Thank you for believing in the show. Thank you for believing in me. And thank you for always reaching out to me with potential interviews and cool opportunities. Also, thank you to everyone who agreed to be interviewed for Take One. Sarah Greenwood, Katie Spencer, Sam Green, and Karsten Wall. Thank you so much. And of course, thank you guys for watching. That is it for my coverage of this year's Vancouver International Film Festival. Stay tuned for more videos. Goodbye.